Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. You know who it is. I am your boy, as always, Kayvon. Hope everyone's having a beautiful day wherever you are and however you're listening and whenever it is that you're listening. We appreciate you for tuning in today to our show. And as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Sunday morning over on my side here. Usually we record these on Saturday, but had some technical difficulties last night with a couple of microphone problems. But now we're back at it and we're good to go. And we've got a lot of stuff going on today for the show. And you know, it's exciting as always because we are officially closer and closer to football. Tomorrow, Tuesday, is the first day of September, which means we will be officially in the month of NFL season. And as we all know, that first game is that September 10th. The Kansas City Chiefs, defending champions, taking on the Houston Texans. And that's a big matchup. You remember, Houston was up 24-0 in the playoffs against Kansas City, and then Mahomes just went on that tear after that. And Houston beat Kansas City in the regular season last year too. Obviously that didn't really matter much though because Kansas City got revenge, but love two of the best young quarterbacks we have in the league, if not the two best young quarterbacks we have in the league in Mahomes and Watson. And then of course, you know, you can throw Lamar in that boat as well, but beautiful matchup to start off. We did our fantasy draft over the weekend. That was awesome. So for all of you guys that are about to do that, I know you're excited. Have some fun with that. We'll talk a little bit about my roster at some point, but this show is going to be a little bit different today because there's a lot going on in the sports world, and we need to talk about it. So this is going to be a deep conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to happen. So please stick with me for that. And after that, we're going to dive into some more allegations coming out of Washington that now really do involve the owner, Daniel Snyder, at this time. And again, it's allegations, but we're going to look into that and see what this means if these allegations are true. We're also going to discuss some Tua and the rumors of him looking really, really good in camp, but the Dolphins still don't want to play him week one. Why is that? Are they making the right decision? We're going to dive into that, and I have some strong thoughts on this, so stick with us on there. We have some breaking news this morning that it looks like the Minnesota Vikings are trading for Yannick Ngakoue, the defensive end out of Jacksonville, which is a massive upgrade to that defense. I mean, Yannick Ngakoue is a beast of a player. Adam Schefter reported that it looks like they're giving up a second and possibly a third. I'll get into those details later when we talk about it. But if this trade goes through, this is a huge upgrade for the team that I already picked to win the NFC North. And now this is making my pick feel a lot better. So love that. We'll dive into all that stuff. And then to end the show, we're going to rank, since football's right around the corner, the best divisions in football from top to bottom. There's 8 divisions out there. We're going to give you 1 through 8 and why that is. So stay tuned to hear if your division is one of the divisions that's maybe at the top or maybe at the bottom. We'll discuss it in just a bit. But I wanted to get through that quick because I want to start with this topic and have as much time for this first segment to really get through this. So I'm going to get right into it, all right? And look, I want to be clear here. I don't enjoy doing this type of intro, okay? I don't. But it's time to get serious. And look, I didn't get into this line of work talking about sports radio, to talk about racial injustice. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. But what is happening in our world now, it's gotten to the point where this is where we are as society, and it now has to be talked about because it is now fully in the sports world. And this is a sports podcast, and the sports world has been affected by it, so we have to discuss it. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but as the host, as my duty, I feel obligated to do it. And I hope you as listeners want to listen. And then we'll get into football after that. Because things have to change and they have to change fast. And I want to be on the right side of history. And I really hope that all of you out there that are listening will give me a chance. Give me a chance to say what I want to say, have to say. But our society is in shambles right now. The black community is hurting. And look, I'm 26 years old. I'm a 26-year-old white male. And in no way can I sit here in front of this microphone and act like I know what African Americans are going through. And I'm not going to do that. But what I have been doing is I've been listening. And this week there has been so much heartfelt messages that have moved me, that have moved my friends and family. Just go listen. I ask all of you to go listen to what Chris Webber said after the NBA didn't take the court Wednesday night for the 3 playoff games they had scheduled. Go and listen. Go and listen to what Troy Vincent said, the vice president of football operations for the NFL. Go listen to what he said. Go listen to those messages and listen to what they are saying. Listen to their words. I've been listening, I've been reading, I've been learning, and now I'm trying to sit here all week and figure out where I can help, where I can be on the right side of history. And I believe that starts by talking into this microphone. So here we go. And let me be very clear, right off the bat. And this is the honest truth. If you don't realize that there is a problem going on in our society right now, then you are a part of that problem. It's that simple. If you don't want to hear this conversation, if you don't want to have this conversation, then you are a part of that problem. And this is what I hate. I hate this so much. When I hear someone say, well, he was a criminal, and he was resisting arrest. If he just complied and listened to the cops, then what, huh? Then what? He gets shot 5 times instead of 7? I mean, if you can sit here and talk that BS, then you are a part of the problem. I don't care if he was a criminal. I don't care that he didn't fully comply with how the police wanted him to. No, we are way past that now. Those aren't excuses anymore. If he was a criminal, and I'm talking about Jacob Blake here, as we all know, if he was a criminal, then he deserves to go to jail. He does not deserve to get shot in the back 7 freaking times. 7 times. There are no more excuses. The excuses are over. Police need to be trained better. They just do. And that's the facts. I see way too many people still trying to use the excuse card. And if you're doing that, you are officially a part of the problem. Okay, so that is first. I want to start by saying that. Now, after the police shot Jacob Blake in the back 7 times with his kids in the back seat watching, the sports world made a stand. The sports world is tired. And they are using their platform to come together and do something historic. Do something that has never been done before. What we saw this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, was 3 of the most historic and important days in all of sports history. Hands down. All of the sports world, not just the NBA. It was the WNBA. It was the NHL. It was the NFL. It was the MLB. It was soccer, Major League Soccer, Premier League Soccer. They all stood together as one. And they proved that they can be more powerful than the system itself. The sports world proved that when they work together, when they stick together, they can achieve so much. And that sports and these athletes can truly be the leaders of our society. And I think that was amazing to see. And I stand with the players. And I stand with the players in every way possible. And if they make a couple mistakes along the way, that is okay. We need to understand this, guys. If they make a couple mistakes along the way, that is okay because they are humans. And at the end of the day, they are basketball players, they are football players, they are soccer players, they are baseball players, and it's not fair for us to expect them to be perfect at any time. They are already taking on so much of a burden, and we need to understand that. And I am damn proud of these players. I mean, think about what we saw this week. Think about it. It started with the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that resides in the state where this shooting of Jacob Blake happened. They decided they didn't want to play, and the rest of the teams followed. And then the rest of the sports world followed. And I was proud of them for that. They were tired, they were exhausted, and I respect that. And for those that say, what does boycotting a couple of days do? I do believe that let me just say this first. I do believe that playing games is more effective to get the message off, to get the message out. But before I go into that, I want to make sure I stress this. I am very, very glad that they did boycott for those couple of games and days, because that showed the power that they have. That showed the owners and the world what they can do and how, if one league does it, well, the rest of those leagues are willing to have their back and follow along. That is a key part in this. It wasn't just that the NBA boycotted. The NBA boycotted, the WNBA boycotted, the NFL didn't practice for a couple days, the MLS didn't play for a couple days, Major League Baseball didn't play for a couple days, well, some of the teams. They're in a whole separate issue because they're trying to squeeze in 60 games in like 68 days, and that's a whole mess. But it just showed how much power and unity there is on the sports world in the sports world right now. And it was beautiful to see. And that is special. That is really, really special. And look, it's already working. I mean, just those 3 days. We have had so much come into plan in just those 3 days. I mean, you have an advisor to the president of the United States, a guy named Jared Kushner, already saying how he is going to reach out to LeBron to come up with solutions. He said slogans, and I quote, slogans are great, but now it's time to come up with a solution. I mean, that's a big deal. I don't know what they'll be able to come up with, but that is a big deal that he's aware of that and that he's willing to come out and say that. These players know how powerful they are, but they also know how powerful the owners are. I mean, look at this already. Just those 3 days. Now, every single NBA owner is opening up their arena for voting this coming November. So people have an easier place to go vote. And not to sidetrack real quick, but I kind of think that makes voting even cooler. Like, hey, I'm going to go vote in the American Airlines Stadium arena down in Miami because that's where my team plays if you live down there. Like that's kind of cool, you know? Go vote in Staples Center. Go vote in Spectrum Center. Like that's something that you can say you did. And the owners opening up the doors like that was because the players forced it. The owners are some of the most powerful people in the world. If you own a professional sports team, do you guys know how hard it is to own a professional sports team? We have billionaires that have been wanting to get into an ownership of an NFL or NBA team or whatever for years. And some of them don't let these billionaires in. It is a hard thing to become an owner of a professional sports team. Once you become that, you become very, very powerful in all different aspects of life, especially in the politics side of things. The owners have weight in politics. You better believe that they do. And the players can force their hand to make change. So it was awesome to see the sports world do what they did this week. It really, really was. But in the end, I am glad that the NBA decided to restart the playoffs because this platform that they have goes a long, long way. See, this is the thing about a platform, ladies and gentlemen. Your platform is your power. If you're special enough, if you're talented enough, if you're smart enough, fortunate enough to have a platform, that's your platform, and that becomes great responsibility. Great success comes with great responsibility. Whether you think that's fair or not, that's how it is. When you become successful, when you have a voice to thousands and millions of people, you then have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to say what is right. You have a responsibility to make sure that your role models are looking up to you for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons. All of that is so important. And when you relinquish that platform, when you give that platform up, it allows someone else to take that platform. And the last thing we need right now as a country is to be hearing from someone else. No. As a white man, I want to hear from LeBron James. I want to hear from Doc Rivers. I want to hear from these players. Because I don't know what they are going through. But I learn when they talk. They educate me. You don't want to give that platform away because once you give that platform away, people will stop listening. When you play basketball, you force people who love the game to watch. And you know what? You force people who love the game but might hate the Black Lives Matter movement, you force them to make a choice if they want to watch or not. And because they love basketball, most likely they will watch. And they will see the Black Lives Matter painted in big letters on the court. They will see the jerseys that these players are wearing and the words on the back. They will hear LeBron and Chris Paul and all these other players and coaches talk about what is going on in our country after every single game and every time they have a microphone in front of them. That is a power. That is the power of a platform. That is the power of a platform. See, let me tell you something. My dad found out who Doc Rivers was the other day. My dad doesn't watch sports. He'll listen to my show because I'm his son. He loves to support what I do, and he will watch games with me here and there. But he's not a big sports guy. Just not at all. Never really has been. Like I said, he enjoys watching them when I'm around, stuff like that. But all in all, he's not a big sports person. Well, after Doc Rivers gave that emotional and powerful message earlier this week, that was played all over TV, news channels, basic channels. I mean, you name it. That message was being played. And my dad comes home and says, wow, Kayvon, that message, that Doc Rivers guy, the coach, that was incredible what he said. He really got to me. See, if there weren't games going on, my dad would have never saw that message. Because, yeah, Doc Rivers could have put a phone in front of his face and videoed himself talking that way. But it maybe would have gotten 1,000, couple thousand people watching it. But this got a couple million people watching it because it was going all over the mainstream media and these TV channels. That's what this platform can do. My sister, who, she watches sports a good amount. I mean, not anything like me or hardcore, but she'll watch it here and there. But she's not a big time sports fan. When the NBA just started back up, the restart, she came up to me the first day of the restart, was back and said, while I was watching the games, and said, wow, is that Black Lives Matter painted on the court? It was the first thing that caught her eye because it was so big on the court. She said, wow, what is that on the back of their jerseys? Different names saying vote, say their name. She doesn't notice those things right away if they don't play. That is powerful. And for everyone that is complaining about how athletes shouldn't be like this, and they should just stick to sports, and they should just be playing sports, and this really, really bugs me. I hear people say, athletes back in the day, like older people, athletes back in my day have never done this. Like, are you stupid? Do you not remember that Muhammad Ali literally stood up against the government? Against our own government. And now he is one of the most beloved athletes ever. Sure, he was hated during the time. A lot of people don't realize what he's doing during that time because they don't have a brain. Just stop that nonsense. I cannot stand when I hear that nonsense. The things that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell did. Like, I am proud of these players. And I'm glad years from now, I'll be able to say I was on the right side of history. And I sure hope that you guys can say the same thing. We'll be back right after this. This is the GSMC Football Podcast.
Listen up, sports bettors. This is Bryce and Ethan here to tell you about our favorite sports book, and that's BetUS. Football, basketball, and baseball are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. We only endorse one sports book, and that is BetUS.com. Why, you ask? BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the biz. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you're going to get paid.
That's right, Bryce. You need a sports book that offers everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, entertainment, and all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. So call today at 1-800-MY-BET-US. That's 1-800-MY-BET-US, and they will walk you through getting started. Nobody in the industry gives better bonuses or bigger bonuses than BetUS. Join now, mention GSMC, and you get up to 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. We bet at BetUS, and so should you. So join BetUS today. That's BetUS.com or call 1-800-MY-BET-US, mention GSMC, and get 150% in bonuses on your first deposit.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Hope everyone's having a beautiful day. If you're listening right now, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, put your feet up, and enjoy the show because we are entering in quarter number 2. The great quarter number 2, where we usually like to separate ourselves a little bit more from the opponent. You know, we always try and come out blazing hot quarter number 1, right? You know, just fire away, get that, return the kickoff for a touchdown or have that 80-yard touchdown on drive 1. You know, set the tone for the rest of the game. Set the tone for the rest of the show. And it was a tough first segment there, but it needed to be said, and I hope everyone listened, and I hope everyone, agreed with what I'm saying, and I hope I said it the best possible way I could have. It's tough. It's not easy to talk about this stuff, but it's terrible what is happening, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. The racial injustice in this country has been going on for too dang long, and it needs to stop, and I am proud of our players for stepping up and talking about it. I am proud of them. Remember, we have coming up in segment number 4, we are going to rank the divisions in the NFL 1 through 8. Which division is the toughest? That has a lot to do with when it comes to making the playoffs or not. You got to play these teams twice. You got to play your division opponents twice a season. That's tough. If you're in a tough division, that right there really hampers you from, having a better record than you can. But it also brings the best out of you. You're ready to go every single game because if you don't bring it, you're in trouble. Man, it was crazy. We had some college football last night. Excuse me. That was something wild to see. It was like Austin P against Central Arkansas, I think, or Arkansas State. I don't know. It was one of those FCS teams, but that was really cool to see, and it hopefully we'll have many more. The first play of the game of the college football season, I think it was like a 70-yard touchdown run with a pitch to the backfield by the quarterback, and the running back took off. And that was really cool to see, and hopefully we'll get a lot more of those highlights as we go. I'm sure you guys have all heard the rumors now that the Big Ten is actually thinking about starting up the college football season in Thanksgiving, which I had a feeling that they were going to try and change it, but I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what they're going to do, but that just goes back to my point of that they jumped the gun too early on their decision, and now that they're seeing these other teams that are about to get ready to play, they don't want to be left out. They thought everyone else would follow suit. But again, if it is because they're worried about keeping their players healthy and they really are worried about it, then you shouldn't change that decision up. You should stick with it. No matter how much the players complain, no matter how much the players' parents complain, no matter how many lawsuits are coming your way by Nebraska and Nebraska's players and all that, if that's the true reason, then you need to stick with that. But we'll see what happens from here. I do want to quickly, we're about to dive into what's going on with Washington's organization and the new allegations that have come out, but I do just want to continue on real quick about what we were talking about in segment number 1 with what these players have done and the historic week that we've seen in the sports landscape. And the world is changing every day, right? Every day it's changing. And it's changing for the good and for the bad. And right now, it's changing for the bad. Or I guess the better way to say it is, it's not getting better. Because this stuff has been happening for 400 years now, and it's not getting better. And it's actually getting worse. It feels like it's happening every day almost, where we see an unarmed black person getting killed by a police officer. And there's no more excuses for it. And I know that someday, when I'm older and I have kids, they're going to ask me because they're going to learn about what 2020 was like. And they're going to realize how crazy 2020 was. And they're going to ask me about this week. They're going to ask me, what did I remember about 2020? What did I remember about COVID? What was I doing during COVID-19? What did I think about George Floyd and what happened to him? What did I think about the night that the NBA players refused to play, that the WNBA players refused to play? What was I doing that night? Daddy? Huh? And when those questions come, I just want to make sure that I can tell my kids how important this time was and that I was supportive, and that I was rooting for the winning team. That's what I want to be able to say. And that I respected these advocates and these athletes, just like they should when change comes in their generation, because it will. It will. And I think a lot of parents 30 to 40 years from now, when their kids come to them with those questions, they're going to have to either admit to their kids that they hated what was going on now and are against it, or they will have to look at their kids and lie to them. There's going to be a lot of parents in that situation. And I don't care what Twitter says. I don't care what any politician says. I care what I'm going to say to my kids one day. These athletes, they are going to be able to tell their kids with pride that daddy or mommy stood up, that they took a stand, and that's special. That is really special. I'm continuously impressed with how much these very young, very wealthy athletes care. And I will remember August 26th and August 27th and August 28th for the rest of my life because of these athletes. This week was historic. It was unprecedented. And I thought that the WNBA, their performance and their words and the things that they wrote on those shirts, I mean, it was all very impressive. It was incredible. I thought seeing George Hill of the Milwaukee Bucks up there with his entire team, including players from different countries, including white teammates like Kyle Korver and others, all in their unity. I thought that was incredible to see. It was an incredible statement. I looked towards the NFL too, because the day earlier, Matt Patricia had full plans to have a practice with the Detroit Lions, and they decided, no, you know what? They're not going to play football today. Let's go out there and let's use this time to make a statement, which they did, and it was an awesome scene to see. That entire Lions organization out front of their building with signs, making speeches, talking. Matt Rule of the Carolina Panthers, who's a first-year coach coming from college program, addressed his team before their scrimmage under the lights that night. The under the lights scrimmage that we all know with that was going to be media there to watch and observe. And Matt Rule said to his guys, you know what, it's up to you. Do you want to play? Do you not want to play? Let's talk about this first. And they actually decided to play because they felt that just going out there and saying we're not going to play and then sitting and looking at each other, just talking isn't going to do it. That's what Matt Rule said. We figured let's go play and let's work on a bigger plan long term, and let's actually take our time and decide how we want to handle things. A lot of people are going to be seeing a lot of things. A lot of teams are going to do a lot of things, and we're going to see the statements. You know how the statements on Twitter from each team with their logos saying we need to end racism. Well, of course we need to end racism. And that's great. And we all love seeing those statements. But we want more now. Now there's just no more. It's not. We need more than just saying, let's end racism. We don't stand for racism. Who stands for racism? You know? I mean, yeah, of course there's people out there, but come on. What are you going to do about it? I find it very, very inspiring that it's people of all colors. It's coaches of all colors. It's players of all colors. And for the first time in maybe the NFL's history, seems like the NFL is one of the leagues that are going to be leading the way on this too. You know? They've already come up with things to do week 1. They're going to be putting things all over the field, from what I hear. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And Saquon said it, you know, he came out and said, hey, we us players need to think about maybe sitting out a week or two like the NBA did. The NBA they set out about 3 days, which was about 2 different games, depending on what the schedule. And look, do I think the NFL is going to sit out? No. But I will say this. The NFL and the NBA are in 2 different situations, okay? First of all, the NBA is like 85% African American. And yes, the NFL is majority African Americans as well, but not to the point of the NBA. Also, the NBA has a lot of power and weight with their superstars because in basketball, one superstar can take you so much farther than what one superstar on an NFL team can do. Does that make sense? See, the NFL, you have 11 people on offense and 11 people on defense. Everyone has to contribute to win the game. Because you're not going to have one player on the field the entire time. The NBA, if you have a LeBron James, you can go all the way because he can do things. He can play both ends of the court and he can play the entire game. And he can affect the game that much. So when a LeBron James stands up, when a James Harden stands up, when a Giannis Antetokounmpo stands up, when a Kawhi Leonard stands up, these NBA players, these NBA owners, their hands become tied. Because if they want their players to play, if they want their players to stay on their team, well, then they better do something about it. And the NBA has made a real job where, it seems, Adam Silver, the commissioner, is clearly on the player's side with all of this stuff, and he clearly likes to help out as much as he can. He likes to do the right thing. You can tell it. We've seen it from day one. And the owners had to capitulate. They had to give in. They had to decide that we have to work with these players. We have not seen that as much through the NFL owners. And I think that's fair to say. Not many NFL owners, really none of the NFL owners were very happy with what Colin Kaepernick did. They tried to sweep it under the rug. It was all about affecting the bottom line. The ratings were down. That's all we heard. It's all we heard. Over this offseason, when a couple of the shootings happened and all the protesting down the streets and cities were happening, we kept saying, when is an NFL team, an NFL owner, going to stand up and say something? We never heard it. So, if the players go to their owners and say, hey, we want this, this, and this to happen, are the owners going to say, okay, yeah? And I'm not saying the owners are bad people. I'm not saying that they're racist people. Not at all. But the owners in the NFL are known to stand their ground a little bit more than NBA owners are because they feel like they can just, hey, you don't want to play? Move along, then someone else will fill your spot. Because there's so many people in the NFL, there's so many players on your team. So if the NFL does want to boycott a game, it's going to take the entire player organization, just like the NBA, to make it work. They're going to have to stand in unity. And they're all going to have to be willing to do that. Now, I don't think they will do that. I think that they made their stand with the NBA. But if another shooting happens, if another unlawful killing of a black man happens, then yeah, we could definitely see it. We could definitely see that happen. And that's what's going to be the interesting part of all this. And we'll see as it goes because, we're right around the corner. We're right around the corner. But as we know, the NBA's back up now. The WNBA's back up. The NFL's back practicing. And it was just amazing to see everyone the NHL even didn't play for 2 days. Now they're back up. They made sure that they came together. They took a couple days off. They took a break. They had important phone calls. with important people, and they came up with plans. And that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing that they did. And I am proud of our players. I am proud of these athletes that I love to watch every single day to show that they're more than just athletes. And even these young ones, 21, 22, $23 million young men are standing up and talking and making their voice matter. And that's beautiful to see. It really is. So I said that we were going to get into the Washington allegations, but now that we only have 5 minutes left in this segment, I don't want to do that because it's going to take up some time. So I want to just get into, to end these 5 minutes here, the news about the trade with Yannick Ngakoue and the Minnesota Vikings. And then next segment, we will get into the Washington allegations on Daniel Snyder, and we will get into Tua Tagovailoa performing very well in practice, and the Dolphins still not wanting to start him week 1. We'll discuss that, and then as always, we'll end the show with our final and hot segment of ranking the 8 divisions 1 to 8, and stay tuned for that. But I want to get into this. So Adam Schefter recently tweeted out here early this Sunday morning that the Jaguars agreed to trade franchise defensive end Yannick Ngakoue to Minnesota for a second and conditional 5th round pick that could go as high as a 3rd round pick, league sources tell ESPN. So Ngakoue still has to sign his tender now, but trade is in place and Ngakoue will go to be a Minnesota Vikings once he signs that tender. Because remember, he wanted a long-term deal, right? But he wanted out of Jacksonville. So Jacksonville put the franchise tag on him, and he hasn't signed it all offseason because he wants to be traded. Jacksonville even offered him a massive contract, and he said no because he wants to be traded. He wants nothing to do with Jacksonville. Supposedly some things happened that rubbed his feathers the wrong way, just like a bunch of other players that have now asked to be traded from that organization. And that's becoming a problem with the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. Again, we went through this when we went through the Kayvon division tour and broke down the AFC South. You cannot keep allowing, the Jaguars draft very well. They really do. I mean, look at some of the players they've drafted. You know, Dante Fowler, who's a double-digit sack guy, not on the team anymore. Jalen Ramsey, who's a top 3 cornerback in this league. He's a lockdown, shutdown beast of a cornerback. Yannick Ngakoue. Like, they draft really good players that just end up wanting to leave. They're not happy. Or they bring in players in free agency that also end up wanting to leave. And I think a lot of this had to do when Tom Coughlin was there. And I think that he was a very old school approach, and this kind of happened with the Giants too towards the later years, and I don't think the players were having it. And it's definitely hurt this organization, and it's going to be interesting to see how things change from there. So that's the Jaguar side of it. And I'll tell you this, they did not get enough for Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick is a wrecking havoc. He is a beast. And they only got a 2nd and a possible 3rd round pick for him. That's not very good. That's not very good. Now, on the Vikings side of things, I love this. I love this move for the Vikings. Minnesota was already my pick, as you guys remember, to win the NFC North. And now, because I thought that I liked what they did this offseason, I like some of the players that they added. I like Justin Jefferson, the receiver that they added. And I like the scheme that they do for Kirk Cousins. Like, I don't trust Kirk Cousins. I don't think that he is the best quarterback in the league in no circumstance, but I think that he's a decent quarterback when the run game is flowing. And now that Gary Kubiak is stepping into the offensive coordinator, he has shown us that he can make sure that he has a good, powerful play-action run game, and that makes Kirk Cousins better. So you have Adam Thielen, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Dalvin Cook, and then now you have a better defense too. And that's the big part of it, because you add a guy in Yannick Ngakoue who was drafted in 2016. He came out, had 8 sacks that year, 2017 had 12 sacks. 2018 had 9.5 sacks. 2019 had 8 sacks. Look, and he's doing that on a bad football team. This is a very good football player. I'm telling you, the sacks might not always show it there, around 8, 9, 10 a year. But you add that type of production to an already good defensive line, he's not going to be doubled as much. He was getting double teamed on Jacksonville almost every play. That's not going to happen as much. He's going to be open. He's going to go one-on-one, and he is going to wreak havoc. And the other teams in the NFC North should not be very excited about this move by the Vikings. It's a really, really good move. I love it. And I was wondering what was going to happen with that because we're almost a week away or so from the NFL season starting. And Yannick Ngakoue still hasn't signed his franchise tender, but now he has. And he is on the move to Minnesota, which leaves us to one player left, Jadeveon Clowney. What's going to happen with Jadeveon Clowney? I cannot believe that he's still not on a team. I think that the Tennessee Titans are the perfect team to sign him, but clearly he's asking for too much money, and that's something that we need to watch. But for now, the Minnesota Vikings have gotten a lot better, and I am very happy with my pick of picking them to win the NFC North today. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to dive into more allegations on the Washington Football Organization, an offseason that just keeps on getting worse for this team, and also some Tua Tagovailoa talk. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to Extreme Cage Fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back, coming out of halftime, going into quarter number 3, and I hope everyone's enjoyed the show so far today. I am your host. I am your boy, Kayvon Izami, as always, coming at you with the GSMC Football Podcast. Super pumped up, always delighted and excited to be here talking with you guys today. I hope everyone's enjoyed the show. I know it's been a little bit different. We're not talking exactly the storylines and what goes on the field. But these conversations, frankly, that we have been having are more important. I mean, I love sports. I got into this business because I love sports. I can't stop talking about sports, and I probably talk about sports 90% of my life, throughout the week. 10%, I listen to other things going on in the world, the other 10% of that, and whatever my friends and family has to say and outside of sports, but my life revolves around sports. And some might say that's sad, but that's my life, and I love it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But you have to take every conversation. You have to be prepared to take every conversation, and you have to be able to do your research on it. And that's what I've been doing. And I've been listening. And again, they're not the most fun conversations. And they're not the easiest conversations. And they're very polarizing. And it's going to cause stir. And some people will stop listening because they don't like what I'm saying. But they're very important. These conversations are extremely important. And they're more important than what happens on the football field and who wins a game and who doesn't. This is life. This is death. And this type of stuff needs to stop, and it needs to stop right now. It's been going on for too long, and it felt like we were getting in a better place years ago, and it's just come full circle, and it's just it's not good. It's not good at all, and that's why we have to appreciate what we're living in right now with what the athletes are doing. Okay? Of course, we're not appreciating what is going on with the racial injustice in our country and in the world, but we have to appreciate the type of athletes that are in our generation right now, okay? I mean, it is not often that you find athletes that are young, like Jaylen Brown, like Saquon Barkley, that are so eloquently able to speak on these issues. Rich, young athletes that, and I'm not saying athletes before weren't smart enough. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just sometimes it felt like it was always I play sports. And I don't need to speak about that other stuff. But they stepped up, and it's been very, very impressive what some of these athletes have done. And we've been seeing athletes do this for a long time, as I said earlier. You know, we've seen Muhammad Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown and Bill Russell and, you know, LeBron James. But now when we see the younger generation do it too, that's what's really cool to see. That's what's really, really cool to see. And to get to have the whole sports world come into unity like that is special. And I'm telling you, it's a moment that we will live and we will remember for the rest of our lives. And when that time comes, whether it's your kids or your friends' kids or anybody, you know, your nieces and nephews, they're going to ask about what happened during 2020. They're going to ask about when the NBA boycotted an actual NBA playoff game. Not just a regular season game, a playoff game. Something that's never happened before. They're going to ask what you were going through during that, what you were talking about during that, what you were thinking about, what you believed in. And you want to be on the right side of that history. You want to be able to tell them the truth. And you want to be able to tell them the truth proudly. And that's where I stand on that. And I hope you guys do too. So let's get into some football talk now with an organization that, frankly, we have been talking about a lot. I mean, with the Washington football team, and it was actually really funny. This matter that we're about to talk about is not funny. This is a serious matter. But as I told you guys, real quick, just to go off topic, we had our fantasy football draft, right? We had it on Friday night. We did it on Friday night, and it was a blast. It went well. You know, I got my boy Matty Ice. Super happy with that. I think I got him in the 8th round, which is good too, because you never want to take a quarterback too early unless you're going for Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. But I don't like to take quarterbacks before the 8th round. So by that time, you know, we had Lamar off the board, Mahomes off the board, Russell Wilson off the board, and Matty Ice to me is the next best. Oh, Deshaun Watson was off the board too. So I went with Matty Ice, and I was really happy with that pick. I got him to pair with Calvin Ridley, so I can get a nice little stud Falcon duo going on. So that was pumped. But anyways, we were talking once someone took Terry McLaurin, who's a fantastic, had a really good rookie year as a receiver, and I think is going to be really one of the best young receivers in this game. And he's kind of he's the bright spot of this organization, you know, of the Washington football team. I think Dwayne Haskins has a future. I think that he has a good future. I think that he's going to be a good player. I think he just needs some stability in the organization. He needs Ron Rivera there. It was a perfect hire for him. And he needs some time. But McLaurin is ready to go. And he's probably the best player on this team for now. Chase Young will eventually be that player if he isn't by week 2 or 3 this coming year. But when someone drafted McLaurin, we were like, there it is. So the first player by a football team, like the Washington football team, right? That's how you say it. It was just odd, you know. But hey, that's better than the name that it used to be. And if it's going to be the Washington football name for a year, for Washington football team for a year, then so be it. I'd rather have that than what the name used to be, which is always a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, a step in the right direction is not what's happening with this franchise as a whole, though, because it's been a crazy offseason for the Washington football team. And it started off good with the hire of Ron Rivera, and after that, it's really just been bad news after bad news after bad news. And it's unfortunate for Rivera, it really is, because I don't think that he took this job thinking all this stuff would have happened, but it did. And this week, more allegations have emerged regarding the Washington football team and owner Dan Snyder. The Washington Post is reporting that former team executive Larry Michael told employees to create a behind-the-scenes video for Snyder that featured clips of partially nude team cheerleaders from the swimsuit calendar shoot in 2008. All right, so remember, Larry Michael was one of those employees that was already involved in the first report of the 15 women that came out and said that they were sexually harassed by employees of this Washington football organization. And Larry Michael was one of them, and he was gone. He stepped down. So this now comes out, and another former team employee, Brad Baker, tells the Post that Michael referred to the creation of video as a, quote, special project for Snyder. Tim Delaney, another former employee allegedly involved in making the video, has denied the account. The Post is also reporting that a former cheerleader said Snyder invited her to join his close friend in a hotel room so they could get to know each other. This account has been supported by 3 others. Snyder released a statement on these allegations, and here is an excerpt of that statement, and I quote, "The Washington Post article reads like a hip job relying on unnamed sources and allegations that are largely 10 to 20 years old. We attempted to engage with the Washington Post to provide them with the facts, but those facts clearly didn't align with their narrative. There are former employees on the record disputing many of these claims, and yet they still appear in print. It is clear that there are other negative agendas at work in this reporting. Furthermore, I do not have any knowledge of a 10-year-old video reference in the story." He goes on to say, "I did not request their creation and I never saw them. There are former employees on record stating that this did not happen. The unnamed sources who claim it did happen are relying on 3 degrees of hearsay." End quote. All right. So the Post first report came out last month. You know, we went through this, detailing allegations from another 17 women who described sexual harassment as their experience working there. We all remember that post. We went through that post on this show. The thing about that post, though, Snyder was not involved in that, other than being, a bad leader and not treating some of his employees right. He actually wasn't involved in the center of that post. And he actually wasn't someone that was being accused of sexually harassing one of these women. Today, we have Daniel Snyder, the team owner, actually implicated in some of this unseemly behavior. The issue now for the NFL is, will the NFL get involved? That's the question now. Okay, this is what it becomes about. Will the NFL get involved? Right? Because the rumors about Washington had long exist. So now does this make the NFL? Does this officially force their hand? Right? Does this make them have to act on this? We have documented allegations of a toxic work culture, a discriminatory, exploited work culture, and an unsafe environment for women. And will owners decide that, enough is enough? Because we've seen all of this on being documented for a long time now. So we have a name change happening, right? We have partners wanting to sell their stake in the team at this point, right? So Daniel Snyder's name, again in the media, when they're trying to change the culture, is a problem for the league. It's just not going away. So Snyder hires Ron Rivera to change the culture, but it's not getting to the point where it's now getting to the point where, can anybody change this culture while Snyder is still there? I mean, I think that's a fair question because it's starting to seem like that might be an impossible task. Snyder went out and hired new team president Jason Wright, and Ron Rivera and Jason Wright were hired to change the culture. And we get that. And those were good moves by Dan Snyder. They will have to determine for themselves now if they believe that is possible under Snyder's watch and leadership. Look, Snyder has made all of these changes to signal that it's a new day in Washington, that things won't be run the same way. Hiring Jason, right? That's what he did. The first black team president in NFL history whose resume speaks for itself. He has an impeccable resume. Julia Donaldson, Senior VP of Media and Content. Same with her. Ron Rivera. All of these hires are good hires, and they have been steps taken in the right direction. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, Daniel Snyder is still the owner. And the interesting thing, Jason Wright said this when he was first hired, that one of the things that convinced him to take the job was the fact that Washington leadership spoke about values first. Not business values, actual values. So these new allegations, this article in the Washington Post, it definitely makes Ron Rivera and Jason Wright's job more difficult moving forward. I mean, it has been quite the past 2 months in the nation's capital. Let's just roll through this timeline here, okay? On July 2nd, FedEx requested Washington change its team nickname, and after 9 days and a thorough review, the team changed the name that they had played with for the last 87 seasons. Then on July 17th, the Washington Post released that report that we just went through about the 17 women. We referenced alleged sexual harassment within the organization, which resulted in the firing of 2 employees in the pro personnel department. And then a month later, Washington hired Jason Wright as the team president, making him, like we just stated, the first black president in NFL history. Then today, of course, it was actually earlier this week, the Washington Post released a new report which reveals claims against Daniel Snyder. Listen, a lot of people are going to be wondering if the league is going to step in and if their owners would step in. That's the big question, right? That's what we said. The league is going to rely on the lawyers that the Washington football team hired to conduct its own investigation before the league makes any decision. That's what it seems like is going to happen at this point. This is obviously a fluid situation where more and more details emerge as we go. There's a feeling within the league that much of this stems from the limited partners that want Dan Snyder out, and they believe that there will be a war till the death here, pretty much, to, lack of a better word. We know that, right? There's partners that want Daniel Snyder out. They want him to sell his stake. So that's exactly what's going on here, and Daniel Snyder has given them enough ammunition. I mean, he just keeps giving it to them. He's buying that ammunition for free, pretty much, giving it to them. So to go there, he's given them enough ammunition to go after him, and that's again the backdrop to all of this right now. But the league is going to wait for the lawyers to come up with their evidence from the investigation before it would do anything at this point. So the question becomes what happens next, right? And the investigation has to take place both inside the organization and the NFL. These allegations are too serious. And when you look at the allegations, you have to say to yourself, go back. Let's go back a second here. Let's look at Jerry Richardson and the Carolina Panthers. Happened right up the road for me. What happened with all the allegations? They eventually came out, right? And then he sold the team for $2.2 billion. You look at the NBA basketball, and you look at Donald Sterling. All the allegations about him, they eventually came out, and they were all true. And they forced him to sell the team. And so you're in a wait-and-see approach. Obviously, because this is all new news, the allegations have to be found true before anything happens. So I'm not saying just because Donald Sterling and Jerry Richardson and their history eventually came out, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Daniel Snyder here, but we're starting to see a trend with Daniel Snyder. There's no doubt about that. But we still have to make sure that these allegations are true before anything happens from there. But when you're dealing with partners that they don't want to do business with you anymore, and powerful people like that, they'll figure out how to make it work to get you out. And listen, what you permit, you promote. What you allow, you encourage. And what you ignore, you're responsible for. And Daniel Snyder is 55 years old. You mean to tell me that there wasn't some awareness of what was going on in your billion-dollar company? Like, come on. If the allegations are true, there needs to be massive movement. And the other 31 owners need to step in and say enough is enough. Because here's the thing. We've all heard the saying, you are who you hang with, right? And there's only 32 owners. 32 owners in this world for the football organization, the National Football Organization. So those 31 other owners have to start to think, do we really want this man to continue to be part of our league? And I would say this for Dan Snyder. To say it's a new day, right? It's a new day in Washington, hired all these new people. Why should we believe you? Just because you hired these new people? You hired Ron Rivera, and then next thing we know, an allegation comes out. You hire Jason Wright, and next thing we know, an allegation comes out. It almost feels like you know those allegations are coming out, and you're hiring two really good dudes with really good resumes to cover it up. And hopefully that people will talk about something else. Why should we believe you? Why should the players and fans believe you? At first, I thought maybe it is because of the different hires you made. I thought maybe you are going in a different route. But what does that even mean if you're the one that's going to be running this organization? Like, yeah, a culture change is certainly a big part of all of this, but once Daniel Snyder was implicated in these allegations, it took it to a whole nother level, and we can sit here and go through that entire article, and you can go read it if you haven't, but I understand where it's coming from, and we understand the climate that we're in right now in this world. These women voices, they feel like they need to be heard. They understand what they need to do in order to make things right on their behalf. And Daniel Snyder is implied, so now we have a situation where it becomes about the league. Does the league step in or not? I would challenge the league to do a thorough investigation like you do for every player that goes through these things. You wait for the information to come out. Nobody's telling you to jump the gun and do anything before it needs to be done. Wait for the information to come out. But if these allegations are true, don't be hypocritical. There's always been a hard stance on the players, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Okay, when these players do some of these things, they deserve to be punished. But make sure you're not talking out of both sides of your mouth. Make sure that the league has done what they're supposed to do in a lot of these situations, which they have. The league has done what they're supposed to do in a lot of these situations. So if this comes to your table and these allegations are found out to be true, have that same type of energy towards one of the NFL owners that you have had towards players and other people that have gotten in trouble. I mean, look, we will see what comes out of this, but I do think it's important to point out that toxic work environment begins from the top and it trickles down. And we have said this so many times since I've started this show. I've said it countless times. But this seems to be a particularly toxic environment for women due to all the reporting that we have heard. And I think what is important here is that women deserve to be in a workplace just like everybody else, where they feel safe and where they don't have to sit there and say, oh, maybe there's some video floating around of me naked or half naked that somebody might have in their possession. And obviously we'll wait to find out the facts, but I think a culture change is going to be a big part of making sure that women feel safe in this environment. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If these allegations are true, again, if these allegations are true, if the league comes out and does their thorough investigation and they find out that these allegations are true, well, then Dan Snyder needs to sell the team. It's time for him to go if that's the case. And I don't think that's unfair to say whatsoever. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We are done with quarter number 3. Going to take a quick break and then head into quarter number 4, where we will come out and talk some Tua real quick. And should he start or should he not? And then we'll dive into 1 through 8, the best divisions in football, all the way to the worst. Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. You know who it is, your boy Kayvon. He's on me, the host as always. Quarter number 4, here we go. Put up the 4 fingers as we like to do. And let's get into it. We've had a pretty good show so far, I like to say. I like to think that we separate ourselves, have a good lead going into this fourth quarter, to the point where no team's catching up. That's right. No team's catching up. We just talked about Washington and what's going on with the new allegations that's coming down to the Washington football team and Dan Snyder in particular this time. And it's going to come all down to the NFL, right? I understand they're hiring, they're letting Washington hire the lawyers that they hired to do the investigation. That's a whole separate conversation for another day if you guys think that's the right thing to do or not. But I will say this, that I think the NFL needs to be doing their own investigation too. If they want to wait and see what these lawyers find first, that's fine. They don't have to rush into it, but they need to do their own investigation because they need to get to the bottom of this. Because if stuff like this is really happening, this culture has to change, and it has to change right away. It's so unfair that women should not feel comfortable in this organization. They should fully feel like they can work there and they can be in a safe environment, and they don't have to worry about other things going on. And if these allegations are true, I will say it again, Dan Snyder needs to go. And this should be a popular opinion among everyone, including and mainly the 31 other owners. They should not want an owner like that in their club, because that's what it is. If you're an owner and there's only 32 of you in the world, you're in a very, very special club. And that shouldn't have people that are accused of this type of stuff in there if they're to be found true, if these accusations and allegations are found true. And we will wait and find out with that. So what we're going to do now is we are going to jump into some Tua talk. Tua Tagovailoa, who was picked by the Miami Dolphins, 5th overall, coming out of Alabama, who we all know has had some injury updates. So we'll dive into that real quick, and then we will talk about 1 through 8, the best to the worst divisions in football, now that we are less than 2 weeks away. So there's been lots of talks. If you guys are following, training camp for different organizations, and here, I don't know if you guys get on Twitter. Like, I love to follow team reporters, right? That's one of my favorite things to do, because you always get updates and different news topics on what's going on in all these different organizations. And as someone that likes to talk about and needs to talk about for their job all these different organizations and what's going on, I follow as pretty much all of them, all of their reporters. And there's no secret from the video, from what the reporters are saying, from what head coach Brian Flores is saying, from what the wide receivers and the OC are saying, that Tua looks like he looks special so far in training camp. And I know I'm not someone to lose my mind over training camp and preseason football, even though there is no preseason football, but you guys know what I mean, what I'm implying. I'm not someone to lose my mind over playing good during that span. Now, I do think it's a good sign, okay? The last thing you want to hear is your rookie quarterback that you took 5th overall doesn't look good or doesn't look healthy. That's the more important side of this. He looks 100% healthy. He's been deemed 100% healthy by the medical staff, and he looks good. And that's special. That's something really good, right? So this is the question. With Tua shining in practice, with him looking really good, it becomes the conversation. And this is the thing with Tua. I am not on that Dolphins staff. I am not a medical personnel on that Dolphins staff. So I don't know exactly what is being said behind closed doors. But I do know that they have deemed Tua 100% healthy, and I know that for a fact. And if that's the case, Tua should start week 1. This is not about wins or losses. This is not about making fans happy. This is not about him going to be, if he's going to be able to stay healthy or not. This is not about Ryan Fitzpatrick. If Tua is fully healthy, mentally and physically, then he needs to start week 1. If he is out there shining, if he is out there slinging darts all around the receiving corps, and he is healthy, 100% healthy, not 90%, not 95%, not 99%, 100% healthy, then why not start him week 1? Someone answer that for me, please. Because I keep seeing these reports that I hear so many people saying Tua should not start week 1 because they're worried about his health. And they're saying we should let him rest and then start him sometime during the season. I don't understand that process whatsoever. I just don't get it. Because here's the deal, and I'm being dead serious here. If you are worried about Tua's health, if you're worried about him being healthy, then you need to put him in bubble wrap and not let him see the field until 2021. I'm not even kidding. If you don't think that Tua should start week 1 because you're worried about his injuries, well then put Tua in bubble wrap for the entire 2020 season and bring him out in 2021. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I said that when the Dolphins drafted him. I said that if they are worried about his health, then let him sit out the entire year. There's no problem in that at all. Do what the Chiefs did with Mahomes and have Fitzpatrick play all 2020. Let Tua learn on the sideline. But if the Dolphins plan on playing Tua this season, which they have already said that, then play him week 1. What is the point of starting him week 3 or week 4 or week 6? Or week 7? Why? What is the point of that? No, if he is healthy, which he is right now, and the Dolphins want him to play, then start him week 1. Why not? Hey, he has ridiculous amounts of talent. I mean, this guy's a stud. He has the talent. He is a big-time leader. He's a great locker room guy. If he is healthy, let him go out there and sling it right away. Because let me tell you something. For everyone out there that is worried about Tua and his injuries, guess what? You're going to be worried about his injuries every single time he is out on the field. That is what happens when you draft someone who had 2 major surgeries in college. A hip surgery being one of those. It doesn't matter if he goes 2 straight years of being healthy. It doesn't matter if he goes 5 straight years of being healthy. Whenever Tua is out on the field, we will have his injury history in the back of our head. That's just what comes with Tua. Look, if Tua didn't have these injury histories, didn't have the injury history, he would have been in high debate the whole offseason leading up to the draft of if the Bengals were going to take him or Burrow. But because of his injuries, it was a sure thing that they were going to take Burrow. And that's why he dropped down to number 5. But if he is so that's just what comes with Tua. That's just what's going to come with him. That's fair. When you have injuries like that at the college level, some people have had injuries like that and they come out and they never get hurt again. Others never get hurt in college and they come out and then they start getting hurt right away in the NFL. It's a physical sport. It's a violent sport. Anything can happen. And when you have 2 major surgeries in college, it's going to stick with you. Injuries are going to follow you along. But if he is healthy now and the Dolphins are planning on playing him this year, then you play him week 1. This is Tua's team. This isn't Ryan Fitzpatrick's team. This is Tua's team. You drafted him number 5 overall. He looks sharp and accurate in practice. He looks healthy. He is moving well inside and outside of the pocket. You play him week 1. If you want to sit him out all year, then wrap him in bubble wrap and let him play in 2021, and I'm totally fine with that. I said that when the Dolphins drafted him, that I actually said that they should do that. They should let him sit a whole year. But if they have the plan to play him, it just doesn't make sense to me to play him halfway through the season or play him 2 weeks or 3 weeks in the season, because we all know that's what's going to end up happening. Because I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's a good quarterback. He's had a lot of awesome highlights throughout his NFL career. He's a smart man. He's a Harvard man. He's got an amazing beard. But let's be real. He is not the franchise. He is not going to take Miami to the playoffs. He might win you 5 games. He might win you 6 games. He might even win you 7 games if it's a really special season. But that's the cap. Tua can take you to the playoffs. Tua can take you to the playoffs. When you try and start week 1 by playing Ryan Fitzpatrick and then wait for 3 or 4 weeks and then put in Tua, you're just putting more pressure on Tua to then come in the middle of the season and try and impress the fan base. You really are. Think about it. If you're starting Ryan Fitzpatrick and then Tua ends up coming in by week 5 or 6, that means the season is just not going well. Okay? Because if you start Ryan Fitzpatrick and you go 5-0, then you're not just going to say, okay, Tua, it's week 6 now, it's time to bring you in. No. You bring Tua in because you're not having a good season and the fan base wants something to hang their hat on. So they want to see their number 5 overall pick and hopefully their franchise CEO of the next 10, 20 years. Right? But that then just puts pressure on Tua. And that's the last thing you want to do at a rookie quarterback. Let him feel comfortable. Let him feel like it's his team. Put him out there week 1 and let him ride it out. And he might have a bad rookie year. Even Peyton Manning had a terrible rookie year. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns his rookie year. The best way for rookie QBs to learn is by putting them on the field. And if Tua is ready to go, and I mean 100% ready to go, which is what all the reports are saying, then you go out there and you play him week 1. And I don't see it any other way than that. Doesn't make sense to me any other way than that. Let me know what you think. At GSMC_sports. At GSMC_sports. Am I right about Tua? Or would you sit him all year? Or do you think it's smart to bring him in halfway through the season? Let me know. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Hope everyone's having a great day. Let's talk some division football, right? We have 8 divisions in the NFL. 4 in the NFC, 4 in the AFC. And there's always that fun conversation, that true sports talk radio debate of which division's better? Which division's the worst? I think that we all can say for many years it was the AFC East, which is funny because usually when you have a team that wins the Super Bowl or makes the Super Bowl like almost every year in the New England Patriots, you don't think of, okay, how could that be the worst division? But for the longest time, the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins were just irrelevant. And I'm sorry for all you fans out there, but that's just the case. Now, you guys are on the come up. All of those teams are on the come up. All of those teams, I've liked the moves that they've made this offseason. And I think everyone has something for the future that they can hang their hat on, especially the Buffalo Bills. But But, now things are changed up, and we are less than 2 weeks away from the 2020 season, and it's time to start really talking some football, like some sports talk, radio, division talk. We're going to do our predictions next week, and we've already done our division predictions, but we're going to do like our MVP, our rookie of the year, all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. So what this gives us now that football's almost here, there's still some time before we dive into the games, of course, because we haven't got to that point yet. There's still some time to fire off some preseason rankings, baby. Some preseason rankings. And now it's time to rank the 8 NFL divisions. To rank these divisions, I am using Pro Football Focus analytics on win total for each division. I love what they do over there at Pro Football Focus. You guys should really go check out some of their stuff. They have some awesome writers and just people that put together a lot of metrics and analytical stuff, and it can get over your head, but they have some simple articles too. And so I always use them and reference them for stats. So I'm using them for this this topic here. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the 8th and go to the 1st. Okay, so the worst division in football, in my eyes, in my mind, and in Pro Football Focus's opinion as well, is the NFC East. All right? They have that the average win total in the NFC East is 7.48, which ranks 8th among all the divisions, right? So this one, again, figures to be a 2-team race, right, between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, you guys all know who I picked. I picked the Eagles to win this division. You had that conversation between Dak and Carson, who got picked both in the same draft. Right now, I like Daniel Jones with Washington, and I think that Dwayne Haskins, as I said, is going to be a good quarterback as well. But they're both still in the rebuilding years, right? They both have new coaches. They both have a lot of holes still on their roster, but they have some good players. Saquon Barkley for the Giants, Terry McLaurin for Washington. Chase Young for Washington. You got Slayton and for the Giants. So there's definitely some good pieces, and then of course Daniel Jones as well, Eric Ebron. So there's some good pieces there, but they're just not ready to compete yet. I think that this division, it's a 2-team race. It's the Cowboys, it's the Eagles, but I think it's going to be another 9-7 team that wins it when it comes down to the last couple of games. And as I said, I think the Eagles are going to do that. So give me the NFC East as the worst division in football. The 7th, second to worst, AFC East. The AFC East. Now, they're not the worst anymore. As I said that they were for a good amount of years, but now they're the second to worst. And that's because the Patriots have taken a step back. They lost Tom Brady. They lost a lot of players on defense. They don't have any weapons really on offense other than Edelman. Sony Michel's a good running back, but he's taken some steps back. I do like James White, but there's just not enough. Now, I do think Cam Newton's going to have a good year, and I think that the Patriots will have a good season. But all in all, this division is rough. Pro Football Focus has them as a win total for the whole division at 7.63. So a little bit above what they have for the NFC East. And, the Bills, I like the Bills. I think the Bills are a team that could really scare some people and make a run in those AFC playoffs, depending on how Josh Allen gets better this year and keeps, getting better each and every year like he has been. So that's something to watch out for. And then the Dolphins and Jets, as I said, they both have a lot of young talent and a lot of potential for the future, but there's still some things that they need to work out now in the present, and I just don't see those teams winning enough games, and that's what's going to hold this division down when it's all said and done. So AFC East is the second to worst, 7th division. All right, 6th division, the AFC South. All right, the AFC South is my 6th, so 3rd worst division. Jacksonville Jaguars, I've already told you guys, I think will be the worst team in football this year. I think that Jacksonville is in rebuilding mode. I think that they'll put up some stats with Gardner Minshew, but they've lost way too many players. I love Deshaun Watson, but they traded away DeAndre Hopkins. I think Deshaun Watson's a force to be reckoned with. I think the Tennessee Titans are coached well, And I think the Colts will be better this year under Rivers, but it just won't be enough. And Pro Football Focus has them as a win total for the division at 7.93. All right. With our fifth best division, we now have the NFC North. I gave you guys my prediction for that. I think the Minnesota Vikings come out of this division as the division title. And now that they just added Yannick Ngakoue, I like that pick even more. I think that Rodgers and the Packers are going to take a step back. I really was disappointed with the offseason moves that they made. And I know Rodgers can turn it on and be special and lead this team to the division title if he really shows up like that. But I was too disappointed with what this team did this offseason. They went 13-3. They got all the way to the NFC title game, and then they didn't build on it at all. They took steps back, in my opinion, and that's a problem to me. I like the Lions. I think that they have a lot of talent. I think Matt Stafford is very underrated. I love Kenny Golladay. I think he's emerging as a top wide receiver in this league. I really do. And I like that they got DeAndre Swift and they have some good pieces on defense, but I don't like their head coach, Matt Patricia. I don't think he's ready to be a game changer for them and help them win football games as a coach. And that's a problem. And then I think the Bears are going to be a little bit better than last year, but they still won't be the Bears of 2 years ago where we saw them make the playoffs, because I just don't think they have the quarterback for that, unfortunately, because they have a lot of talent and they have a very good coach in Matt Nagy. This is the Vikings division, in my opinion, just because I think that they have the most talent on both sides of the ball. Kirk Cousins worries me. And Pro Football Focus has them as a 7.95 win total for the division. The fourth, the AFC West. Pro Football Focus, 8.13 win total. You have the Super Bowl champions. That helps them out a lot, right? And I think the Raiders are going to make the playoffs, so that's two teams that I see making the playoffs out of this division, which is always good to get two teams. I think the Broncos will be better, but I still am not sold on Drew Lock. I'm still not sold on Drew Lock, and while I love Tyrod Taylor and the leadership he has, and I love the roster that the Chargers have, it's just not enough. It's not enough. And I do not think Justin Herbert's ready to be the starter. I think that they'll be a 500 or one game lower team, and because of that, they take a drop. But of course, at the top of this division with the Chiefs, that is one of the best teams, if not the best teams in the league. So that's why they are the fourth best division. The third is the AFC North, and that's because I like these two teams that I think is going to make the playoffs, and the Ravens and the Steelers, more than I like what the Raiders are doing. Does that make sense? So I think that the Steelers are going to have 11-win year. I think they're going to have a double-digit win year. I think the Raiders are going to have a good year, but they're going to be getting in on that last wild card. I think the Steelers are going to be fighting the Ravens for the division title, and that's why they're the third best division. I don't like Cleveland. I like the talent that they have, but I don't like Baker Mayfield that much. I don't know if he's ready to take that next step. And I think Cincinnati still has a lot of work to do, as they're a young team that's trying to grow. And the Pro Football Focus has their win total at 8.23 as a division. The second is the NFC West. The NFC West is the second best division. You have teams, a lot of people would say that this is the best division because you have teams like San Francisco and Seattle and the Rams and the Cardinals, who everyone thinks is going to be on the come up. And a lot of people are picking the Cardinals as a secret pick and an underdog pick, and Kyler Murray as a underdog pick to win the MVP. I love the Cardinals. I love Kyler Murray. I love that they got DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think they're ready to do that yet because the defensive side of the ball is not there. But I do think they'll have a much better season. I think the Rams will be about 500. And I like the 49ers and Seahawks. I like the 49ers a lot. But I think the Seahawks rely too much on Russell Wilson. And once again, that will get them into the playoffs. But that does not make this division jump the best division in football, which is the NFC South. The NFC South will also have two teams make the playoffs, in the Falcons and the Bucks, but I would not be surprised if I'm wrong about my Saints pick and they have three teams. They could end up doing 3 teams. I'm sticking by my pick that I don't think the Saints are going to make it because I think that Drew Brees is getting a little bit older. He's been showing it every year, and I think that he's going to show it even more this year. And I don't think Jameis Winston's ready to come in and be that guy. But they're the first team because if any division's going to have 3 teams make the playoffs, it's going to be this division. This division has the most firepower on offense I've ever seen. I mean, you can draft an entire fantasy team with this division. Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Calvin Ridley. These are really, really good offenses with Emmanuel Sanders, with just a lot of talent up and down the board. And it's going to be so fun to watch these games. I think they're just going to be offensive power after offensive power after offensive power. The Pro Football Focus has their win total at 8.55, so almost 9 wins there. And I think that they are the best division in football, and Pro Football Focus agrees with me. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Please reach out to me on Twitter. Let me know your thoughts. Did I rank your division bad? Do you think that I ranked them too high or too low? Let me know at GSMC_football, at GSMC_football. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps. You guys are awesome for that. Also, if you can, please follow us on the Facebook, on the Twitter machine, on Instagram. Thank you. Have a great night. Less than 2 weeks away from football, baby. Get hyped because it's right around the corner.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.